I love pink shirts. You know, for me, a pink shirt is, it makes you look healthy.
Yeah.
It reflects on you, and white shirt can be draining. Blue shirts, you need a blue shirt. You need about 3 blue shirts. If you're feeling peaky, a pink shirt is the one.
Brings out the blush.
It brings out the blush. It just makes you look much more healthy. If it's been a tough night with a client the night before, wear a pink shirt.
Welcome to the Sonder podcast. An epic story that continues invisibly around you, like an anthill sprawling deep underground, with elaborate passageways to thousands of other lives. I'm your host, Alexander Robertson, and this is where strangers become stories.
Hello listeners, and welcome back to the Sonder podcast. I'm your host, Alexander Robertson, and this is where strangers become stories. So today I have the great pleasure of welcoming Richard Harvie onto the podcast, and we're here in their beautiful shop here on Jermyn Street, one of the most famous suit streets in the world. And Richard plays an interesting role in this street because you are essentially the current generation of the only family-owned multi-generational shirt maker left. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Not just me, I must say. Of course, there's 2 other directors that are in my on my level.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today we're going to be speaking about the psychology of what you guys do, as well as the beautiful fabrics you have, what your USPs are, but also I think what's really prevalent, and listeners might be slightly bemused as to my outfit today, and this ties in well with that, because this jacket was sold to my grandfather by your grandfather, I believe. And I'm wearing these beautiful pajamas, which are my favourite pajamas, my smart pajamas.
You didn't sleep in them last night, did you?
Well, no comment. Which you sold me. So
Yeah.
I think that really gets into, there's a multi-generational relationship, but that also highlights what you guys are doing. You know, you're so world-renowned. I think you still build the most beautiful English collars, which I'd love for you to explain.
Yeah, sure.
But you're also so modern, so vibrant. I mean, I look at your kerchief now and things like that. There's electric colours.
Yes.
So we want to really get into that, how did we go from this to this, and it's still going?
Yes.
So it's a pleasure to have you here, Richard, and we're going to dive into the questions.
Good.
Marvellous.
I'm ready.
So, first question, we like to start with a little bit of background and heritage story. So, when was Harvie and Hudson founded, and how's it evolved over the years?
So 1949 was the kickoff, and that was actually, it was supposed to be before the war, but of course the war got in the way. And my grandfather and Andrew Hudson's grandfather used to work for a company called the Jermyn Street Shirtmakers, which is now defunct, but they worked there and decided that they could do a good job of it on their own. So they came round to start in Duke Street, and that's where they kicked off. But we didn't come round to Jermyn Street until the early 60s.
Interesting. And that ties in nicely with my next question, which is, that's a big milestone, a world war, but are there significant periods that have shaped the brand and helped to evolve to where you are?
Yeah, definitely. We were a made-to-measure shirt makers, just that was it, with a few ties. And then in the early 50s, then we went into ready-to-wear. But when I say ready-to-wear, it was white shirts, Bengal, pink, that was fairly rebellious then, off-the-rack shirts. And then after that, probably the most seismic thing was in the late 60s, the bold stripes. So the bold stripes were, very much a part of our, our DNA. And so, and they were pretty wild. And we actually designed every one, and each one of those would have been in 4 colorways.
Yeah, and I mean, what that makes me think of is Princess Diana. she used to love wearing your shirts, so they were male shirts, because of that bold, beautiful colours.
Yeah, yeah.
And that really sort of, I don't know, what an exciting era, bold, vibrant, booming 80s.
Incredible time.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible time. And it went on for a long time.
Which became a big signature of your guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sort of leads me on to this wonderful outfit you're wearing today. Look fantastic.
Yeah.
And so
normal day, by the way.
Well, normal. I think this is the least formal I've ever seen you dress.
Yes. I'm dressing down. It's Friday.
Yeah. And so what's the story with this?
Well, I think I had a mentor many years ago. He was a chap called Bertie Mason, and he was, when I say a mentor, he was with us in the very early days, and there's actually photographs of him in the very early days. Then he went away and worked for one of the other side. I won't even mention that. And then he came back and ran some trunk shows with me. But to be honest, he was the mentor on those trunk shows, and this was kind of his signature. And it's not. It was osmosis, but I didn't just copy him. But it always stuck, and I always loved it. So I've always had one of these really bold chalk stripes as a, it makes me feel good.
Yeah, it's
makes
gorgeous.
me feel, you always get nice comments. They might be sort of thinking, "Oh, that's a bit weird." I don't know, but you always get nice comments. I can be walking down the street and someone will go, "Nice suit," and it makes you feel good.
No, it's really powerful, and I always think about when I put on a suit, I always think of it as my number one dress. It's my modern suit of armour. If I'm decked out like you are today, I feel I'm ready to roll, and let's go.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the company, and obviously we spoke about you being the last multi-generational shirt maker on Jermyn Street, essentially family owned. So there must be a lot of challenges there. What would be the main ones as a family business in this?
Well, in a street like this, you mean? I suppose the main thing is, obvious bigger companies coming in. So, which is, a little frightening for a company like this. It's not minute, but it's, they've got a lot of gunpowder there. And for us, that was obviously a concern. However, I'm fairly positive about that, only because when you think about it, Jermyn Street has got to have the marketing magnets on, and what you don't want is a street that's falling down and falling to pieces and becomes a museum. So, for us, it was about, making sure the street was still vibrant. For us, I always thought, we've got to look as good as anyone else, and actually actually as good as our best rival. And I'm not even going to say who they are, but in the big scheme of things, we've got to look as good as our best rival and hone it all the time and get better than them. Nothing like having a good rival.
Yeah. I think what's so special for me being here today was firstly the hugely warm welcome you've given us, but also that this has come out of a conversation you and I had 9 months ago when I was getting these pajamas, and we're talking about this jacket.
Yeah.
And what really comes across is there are those challenges, but I think that's one of your biggest USPs externally is you're so passionate about what you do. It's in the blood, and in that context, you seem to have a very sharply defined set of morals and principles that you live by. And do you want to go into that a bit and how maybe the brand and that multi-generational element has informed that? Yeah,
I mean, to me, it's. I was here with my father for many years, and Andrew's father, and around shirt makers, there were cutters in this room, and there was a cutting room upstairs. So, I kind of grew up in this, and there's a certain amount of integrity that you osmotically bring in from that, and that made me appreciate quality. So. And I think the customer, the customers aren't silly. The customers know exactly what quality is. If you started to downgrade that, you would lose your customer, or the word would get out that you were downgrading it. So it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. So keeping up those standards is essential. It's not just being high and mighty. It's just essential for the business.
Yeah. I think also, you care so much. I don't know many tailor shop where I came in here and I got almost 2 hours of the managing director's time.
Yeah.
And you took great care to make sure that I had the right collar, the right fit for me, and these beautiful pajamas.
Yeah.
It came out of that as well. Something I wasn't looking for. I don't know any other tailoring shop where that would happen.
No, it's unusual. It's unusual, and it's born out of enjoying it. It's born out of enjoying doing the job. I love doing this part of the job. I mean, there are many other parts of the job. If you've got your own company, I'm sure that lots of people watching will think like this. It's 24/7. You're never kind of not completely switched off. There's always part of your brain thinking, what are we going to do? When are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? And to me, but the hospitality side of it is, I think, it's part of your DNA. And a lot of I think the salesmen here they've got that. They're not just about scoring the bottom line. They're about making the environment nice. Good to be in.
Which is a perfect segue into, is there, and I don't think there is there a typical Harvie Hudson client?
No, it's really across the board. I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, you've got the young aspirational, who is probably, he might be 21, maybe even younger actually, and they're looking at social media and they're thinking, I love that look, I like this look, and where do you go for this and that look? They'll come in here, and they might not be able to spend very much, but they'll enjoy the environment. They'll never be kicked out because they're not, full of money there, but the interest is there and the thrill is there from those younger guys. And then, going through to international business traveller is probably one of the core customer. And they, specifically, Americans, Europeans, want that English look. But then, we go to, the statesmen and the princes and the princesses and the media people, sort of celebrities. It's unbelievable what you'll see in here.
It's just so powerful. I mean, so for example, my grandfather bought your clothes. Also, my wonderful girlfriend's grandfather bought your clothes. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I love the cross-generational element with that because, for example, sadly, when he passed away, he left me some of them as well, very kindly, and also his grandson. And his grandson loves your clothes as well, and that's because his grandfather bought him here to get his first suit when he went to school, and then bought him here for his first suit when he went to work, and he wears it with great pride. Just his first job was around the corner.
Fantastic.
So I don't know. I mean, I find it quite emotional actually. I think it's so powerful.
Well, it's lovely to hear. We often see people. We'll either see new people coming in that have seen, something on a Guy Ritchie film that they particularly love, and we might have provided some of that, but they particularly love that look. The gentleman's particularly interesting. It's brought in a lot of people because Guy Ritchie's a big fan of nice clothes, and so it would have brought that younger guy in, aspirational, but and that might not have been their dad that introduced it. It would have been media that introduced them. But then, I mean, it would, every day really we'll get someone saying, look, my son needs his first suit, or needs a blazer, or we're going to Henley, what would he wear to Henley, or Wimbledon.
You've got this heritage, but also, I mean, very intrinsic to your character as well. There's this vibrance. There's this, we walked in the shop today. There's all these brilliant colours shown in your kerchief, and that's very much a reflection of your personality, the shop's personality. It's really buzzing. There's a lot going on. People, when we walked in, it was only, early in the morning, and people are already in there, excited.
Yeah. It's I love in fact, someone said it really well. A chap came in here one morning, and it was with our summer range, and he walked in, he looked around, and he said, "This looks like an explosion in Bertie Wooster's wardrobe." And I took that as a compliment.
Yeah.
It was tidy, by the way.
Yeah.
But it was the pops of colour that were so attractive.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting because, we'll come on to that, but, a gentleman can't accessorize maybe up as much as a lady, but when you do have those really electric colours that you've now got in the shop here, and the way that you can build out an outfit with them, it's really exciting. I mean, look at your kerchief today, your socks, fantastic.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of our gentlemen listeners are very excited for me to ask this question.
Okay, go
so
on.
what are the unwritten rules of suit etiquette that every gentleman should know?
Well, it's really, it's about the fabric first of all, because I think that if you're going to, we've got a team here. Matthew and I do all the buying, and we will be offered thousands of fabrics. So every season, 10 months ahead, we're looking at all the fabrics, and we feel everything, and we think that feels right. Or we look at the weights, obviously, and we look at where the mill is and where if we've used them before. But it's about the quality of the fabric, and we know it feels right. So we're sort of doing the first filter, and if it's made from a fabric that is cheaper, obviously, everyone wants to make a margin, but if it's really obviously cheaper, customer's going to see it in a second, and it'll shine. So number one, buy the proper fabric. It won't shine. It'll last for years. This suit is probably, it's at least 10 years old, and I don't wear it every day. I'll probably wear it once a week, once every 2 weeks, but it's at least 10 years old. And that's because it came from a great mill, So that's number one. Number two, I think silhouette. It's very, when someone walks in with a good suit, you don't necessarily think it's because of the lapel, it's because of the buttons or even the fabric sometimes, because it's very often navy blue, but you just know it's good quality and it's the shape. So the shoulders have to be, in an English cut suit, the shoulders are military, which is a rope shoulder. So it's got some structure to it. And the waist, I'd prefer, if we can, to nip the waist slightly. Ours come with a slightly nipped waist, not tight, but slightly nipped waist. I personally, the house suit is usually a 2-button and twin vent. Okay, and that's standard working buttons in the cuffs. And the shape of the trousers is not tight, but a nice shape. Obviously, it can be modelled to whatever you want. But in short, it's about the shape and not about the bells and the buzzers. Yeah.
Yeah, it speaks volumes. We were trying to work out how old this was earlier, weren't we? And we were, I reckon, around 50 years old, something like that.
Yeah, could be. I mean, it's I'm quite impressed.
Yeah. Well, someone said to me the other day, said, "Oh gosh, have you just bought that?" I said,
No.
No.
Well, the interesting thing is, I've done something very similar to that this year, and that's not because you pointed that out. But yeah, it might well be from the same mill, but it doesn't completely go away. The style doesn't completely.
I feel
go
like
away.
I'm only just breaking it in. It's so solid.
Yeah, it's just about about ready for you now.
One of the lovely things I've always heard people say about you and the family is that you build things. You don't make them. You build your suits.
That's lovely.
And I think that's really reflected. I mean, just what goes into these sort of collars and these lapels and things like that. You can feel it in this, and I say I'm only just breaking it in. It still feels rigid. It's such high quality,
but comfortable.
Not
like a cardboard box.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's made to be kept, not thrown away.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing with me. It's slow fashion. It's not fast fashion. So and it's great that you got that.
I love it. I use it all the
You
time.
got handed that. It's fantastic.
Yeah, very lucky. So, are there some tips that you could pass on for people dressing appropriately for occasions? So, black tie or you know, smart casual or business dress? You know, could you give us a little tip for each of those sections?
Yeah. So, well, black tie is, you know, if you're getting an invitation for black tie, obviously there's an expectation that you're going to wear an evening suit, and that would be with probably a satin or barathea facing, and a stripe down the black trousers. Now, it depends if you feel that you can play with things like the bow tie and the handkerchief. If you feel like the person that's having the party is playful, and you know, maybe you could have a spot on the tie, or a bright handkerchief and a bright bow tie. Now, you know, if it's strict black tie and maybe something very formal, go with that, because you don't want to be out of place or look silly. However, the rules have changed a lot. In fact, the velvet jacket is a really big thing. So the velvet jacket, and a nice velvet jacket, not a sort of cardboardy one, but a really nice quality velvet jacket, hugs the figure, looks fantastic, and if you wear it with the black trousers, looks unbelievable. So you know, judge your occasion, and you know,
judge your person.
Yeah, and work accordingly. Remember, you can always dress down slightly, but if you don't go there with something relatively smart to start with, you'll feel uncomfortable. And the smart casual. So smart casual is something that is, you know, very much embraced. You know, before COVID, we realised that, you know, the separates was becoming really important, and the suit is always important, and of course we're known for it. But the smart casual, it was already breaking, and in Europe it had already broken. But as soon as COVID finished, luckily we were already poised, we were already geared for it. So a really good jacket is important. It can be quite soft. You know, something like a nice cashmere and wool mix is lovely, or cotton if it's summer. And cotton trousers, are sort of chino style trousers with side pockets, not jean pockets, I think is important. You know, you don't really want that 5 pocket look, unless you're in something like tech, which is fine. Of course, it's a totally different ball game. But if you have a good jacket, if you have really nice quality chinos that don't look washed out, that, you know, stay looking good. I've developed our shirt does work really well without a tie, and that's lucky because, you know, ties are less popular. I'll talk about that in a minute, but ties are slightly less popular. Handkerchiefs, I think, are an essential. Now, were originally seen as foppish by a lot of people, but I think now they're really important because people might not have a tie. So we've developed a button-down shirt, but it's different. It doesn't show the button. It's a hidden button. So it stands up really well and looks good all day long. And in the evening, you could take your jacket off and you can go to the pub and, you know, sit in a restaurant and be perfectly comfortable. And as to ties, it's very interesting because we thought they'd have died a death. And out of COVID, I didn't buy heavily into ties, thinking, you know, we better watch that. That's not going to happen. Well, it seems like the strange thing is we sell as many ties now as we did before, but I think it's because other people aren't selling them so much, and we have a big range, and we have a lot of
wonderful colours.
We have a lot of colour. So yeah, and shoes, you know, for dress down, brown brogues, suede. Fantastic. For suits, generally I wouldn't wear brown shoes. I'm wearing brown suede today.
Dress down Friday.
Dress down Friday. I'm going crazy. But yeah, generally black shoes, you know, brogues or monk strap, something like that. There's some great shoe shops down the street. You know, dangerously nice shoe shops down
I think
the street.
dangerous street in general.
Yes, yeah, you want to try living here and not spending too much money down here. But
So we're talking about colours, and one of the subtle differentiations here is that your tie doesn't match your kerchief. I was wondering if you wanted to go into that like you did earlier with me.
yeah, I'm not against. I mean, I buy ties and handkerchiefs from the same piece of fabric for the very reason that people love to match. And very often, in a gifting sense, that's fantastic for customers coming in here. They might come from Japan or somewhere far afield, or America, and they want to take back something that's really English. And a matching tie and handkerchief is kind of perfect. It's not sized. They don't have to worry about the neck size of the person. It's perfect. But for me, I sort of feel like I think it's more expressive if you choose your handkerchief and your tie in the morning. There's obviously ones that I prefer, but it's kind of, that looks great. That looks perfect. It's a pretty easy decision for me, because this is my job. But, if you've got some go-tos, if you've got a dozen ties and, maybe a dozen handkerchiefs, you are going to get something great and you're going to get a lovely look.
I think what's so exciting about that is I very much, my mood reflects how I dress. When I get up in the morning and, so for example, I'm wearing this one today, and that's because, it's full of blues and golds and greens, and it's exciting,
really
it's vibrant, it's
really
rich. And, that sort of reflects how I felt about coming here today and doing this, being really excited, So I think that's great. And, also for our listeners as well, it's a great way to dress up or dress down an outfit, I imagine.
Yeah, completely. I mean, well, like we said before, if you're not going to wear a tie, very often you're going to a meeting and if you're wearing a tie, it's almost worrying for people. But the handkerchief is expressive and it shows that you care about what you're wearing. If you're in a meeting and you're overshadowing what your function is and what your skills are, that's also not good. You don't want to be a peacock.
So less is more. I'm getting a lot of that vibe here sometimes.
Yeah, to an extent. Or you have something that's fairly traditional, and then you pop it with the colour.
Jazz it up.
Yeah. So you have, instead of a suit like this, you have a really well cut blue wool suit, but you'll have a nice, maybe orange patterned, orange paisley handkerchief, and a tie which reflects colours in the handkerchief, or the other way around. But yeah, it's all about expression, but not over-expression.
So this is the next one. There's a big one for me because I feel at the moment I'm at that age where I'm almost living in for weddings and a funeral. I seem to have a wedding every weekend. And I've worn morning dress, and I've worn a linen suit, and I've worn a lounge suit. Are there any tips for our listeners when you're choosing a suit for a wedding, or if you're the groom, what would you think behind that?
Yeah, very much. I mean, to me, obviously, who's the main man? Not the lady, but who's the main man? And of course, that's the groom. So upstaging the groom, not good. For me, that's not fair, actually. So you don't want to outdress the groom. However, you want to be the best of the rest. Okay.
Best of the rest.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think you want to be, you want to have the confidence when you walk in. You want to be completely, the best quality of the rest. But for the groom, I would say, I think the groom should have something made. Yeah, I think he should have something made because he's the one that is the star of the show. Actually, obviously, the lady is the big star, but he's with her. And to have a suit made is the subtleties of that and the quality of that is what counts. And he will show above the rest because of that. That's my thought.
And the English collar is something that you guys have a phenomenal reputation for doing. Would you like to just briefly explain that for us?
Yeah, it's I think it's a London collar. So it's a semi-cutaway. So it doesn't cut away too far. So if it cuts away too far, it looks slightly fashion, which is, okay if but for me, the semi-cutaway, when that collar's on, it sits like this. Well, it sits like this too. So it sits semi-cutaway. The point is enough that it will touch the shirt, but stands really well, and the point doesn't fly. And if the point flies, it looks cheap, It
just sits beautifully. I've, as we said, got a few of your shirts. And for our listeners,
Sure.
by the way, Richard is also showing us one of his beautiful shirts.
Yeah.
And in the episode information, you'll be able to find links to the shirts and what we're discussing here.
Sure. Another important thing is the back. Now, you think, well, that's the back. Okay, it's the back of a collar. It's got to sit above the collar of the jacket. And if it drops below, then that doesn't look right.
Pulls everything out.
Yeah, that doesn't look right either. It's rather like the cuffs have got to show, So those little details will,
half cutaway.
make all...
So interesting.
Yeah, semi-cutaway.
Yeah, semi-cutaway.
Yeah.
So that leads on to another element of that then, and we spoke briefly about colours and how you can jazz up, jazz down. The psychology of colour is a powerful thing. So what do you think about psychology of colour in regards to dressing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I do tend to really like. I tend to really like bright colours, but it's got to be balanced. And as we said before, it's got to pop. It's got to balance. Unless you are in a situation where you're going to a party and it's a garden party, and you really want to look like, the big guy or the fun person. Go for the cobalt blue. We do them, and go for the cobalt blue in summer. But to me, the psychology of colour. Obviously, bright colours mean you're a bit of a show off. Really.
Yeah.
How do I put it?
In a good way as well.
Yeah, in a good way, obviously. And muted colours means you want to stand back slightly. I think there's a place for both, and it certainly depends on the situation. The reds and the oranges tend to mean you're, quite an excitable person, and the blues and the greens, I think. I don't think I've ever studied it, but I feel like it is a more reserved person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the next thing I want to talk about is lapels. Obviously there's a lot of different styles. That's obviously, I think, informs the sort of day you're having or the impression you're trying to give.
Yeah.
So can you explain that for us a little bit? Different
Sure.
lapels, what they mean, where they're appropriate?
Well, there's the two obvious lapels. So a notch lapel is usually on a single breast, and a peak lapel is usually on a double breast, unless it is a evening suit. And if it's an evening suit, then a peak lapel is the normal. Then on sticking with evening suits, there's such thing as a shawl collar. So that you'll see it doesn't have a notch at all. So that just drapes around. There's a colonial collar. I don't do off the rack shawl or colonial. However, I make them often for people. And the colonial is one that stands. It doesn't actually have a fold over, where you can just see the shirt underneath it, but it stands up and doesn't fold.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Now, this is something that's widely discussed. Single-breasted, double-breasted. What's the implications of wearing either?
No, they're not wrong. Neither are wrong.
Yeah.
I honestly think certain people look better in certain things, and a double breast to me looks better on people that are taller. They often slim, but it doesn't have to be. But they have to be. I think they have to be tall, because I think they can accentuate wide if you're not careful. So tall or slim or tall and grand is great for double breast. Single breast, I think, works for most people. I do like double breast. I find them a bit warm, honestly, because you have got two layers. And I'm working in a store a lot of the time, or I'm sitting in an office. And, you know, it's just a little bit too warm, but they do look amazing. But single breast works for everyone. Ours is, I think I already said, but it's a 2-button with 2 vents. You know, some makers will make 3-button with 1 vent. Nothing wrong with that. It's just not our house thing. We prefer that sort of more, to me, a Savile Row look is usually 2-button with 2 vents.
And this outfit you're wearing today is very sartorially elegant, but there's a lot of patterns, aren't there? So are there any sort of tips you give people? How do you come up with such a nice look? And is there an etiquette behind the different pattern mixing? And...
Yeah. There's a lot, and do remember rules are there to be broken as well. You can have a lot of fun with this, and you know, if you've got the money, you know, why not have all of the, you know, the different staples, but also have a something that's really strong. You know, we've had chaps in here that have bought, you know, tartan suits, and you think, wow, that's really strong. But you look at them, and they're usually, you know, someone that's in media, and you watch them and you think, oh, wow, that looks unbelievable. A black watch, for instance, looks fantastic. You know, I particularly like black watch.
Black watch tartan.
Yeah, I like black watch. But, you know, that wouldn't be your first suit. Your first suit has got to be a very high quality navy blue. And then your second suit would be maybe a herringbone grey. When it comes to third suit, then you start, you know, having a little bit of fun with a fine stripe maybe. I love chalk stripe. So I definitely have that. This was probably my second suit, to be fair. And then, you know, you can move into Prince of Wales. I would say, you know, don't go too mad with it when it comes to Prince of Wales. Be careful with that. You know, David Gandy looks good in everything, remember, but we don't always look as good as David Gandy.
Yeah.
So, you know, do remember that, but it's about the quality.
Yeah. And I think that's a really great adage to pass on to our listeners. I think as just a dark blue suit can be dressed up, it can be dressed down.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have one, that's a phenomenal place to start.
You know, you can go to a funeral in that, or you can go to a wedding in that, or you can go to work in that. You know, and it feels great.
And I love that about you, Richard, that the rules are there to be broken, you know, which is great. And, you know, we spoke a lot about the heritage and the history at the beginning. But what I want people to know about you guys is there's this real vibrance and energy in the shop. You know, it's very modern. It's, you know, you see people dressing up, dressing down. It's electric.
They can do it.
Yeah.
They can do it. They can do either here. And
I love how it's adapted.
Many years ago, we were more introspective. And then we, probably about 10, 12 years ago, we rebranded and we totally refitted the whole of the store, and really went to town. Now, you know, being sensitive to the history, but bringing it on a little bit. And but part of that was because we started traveling, going to the shows, and that was a super important moment for H&H, because you know, we went, you know, the team went out to Italy and Paris, and started going to these shows. They're trade shows, but they show you what's there, and they show you what can be done. And the beauty is, it doesn't have to ruin your DNA. It enhances your DNA. So, you know, you can, you know, we when we went to Italy, we found these amazing linens, and, you know, these really bright linens. And of course, the guys in Italy, you know, they have the soft shoulders. They're very short jackets, short trousers. I mean, they look unbelievable. They can be 70 and they look unbelievable. You know, very, very trendy. And of course, that doesn't really work over here so well. Our frame is different, and our DNA isn't a soft shoulder. But we saw that and thought, well, why don't we use that colour in our garment and see if people like it? And so we did exactly that, and it was a surefire hit.
Yeah. Really exciting.
Yeah.
Really exciting. I'm very much coveting all these really electric paisleys you've got in the shop at the moment. They
Yeah,
look
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Why not?
So I'm wearing a watch today as a respecting for you, which was given to my great-grandfather in 1945 by his wife. And you're wearing a beautiful watch. And what sort of thing can we pass on to our listeners about, using accessories to maximise the outfit,
Yeah. Yeah. Again, to me, well, it's lovely to have a bit of heritage, isn't it? It's really nice to have a bit of heritage. So, for instance, this watch, it's my dad's it was my dad's 21st birthday present, and it's got on the back, to Jeff on your 21st.
Wow.
So that when I found it, I literally, well, he did say that's yours when I passed. Well, I did find it in his cupboard, and it wasn't working, so I got it fixed, and it roots me every day in the history, my respect, and the history, the history behind H&H and behind my family. So I think that's lovely. And don't get me wrong, and I've got a sports watch that tells me all sorts of ridiculous things about my heart rate variability. But when it comes down to it, it's nice to have something little with a little bit of history. Cufflinks can either reflect that you want to show a bit of punch of colour, or it can reflect that you're playful. For instance, you might want to have, we've got ones with Range Rovers on, we've got ones with gin and tonic, the RAF Roundels, Spitfires, all that sort of thing. Playful, maybe harping to something of your interest, motorbikes, all sorts. So that's a bit of fun as well. Or you can have something really, really plain, which is a mother of pearl. A mother of pearl cufflink, fantastic. Goes with anything, even wear it in the evening, for evening wear.
And with your outfit today, you obviously have buttons. And I love the Harvie Hudson buttons because they're just so beautiful themselves. They're obviously beautifully made.
Yeah.
So what can you explain that a little bit for us?
Yeah. Well, it's I'm glad you asked that, actually, because it's something that people don't think about too much. But the button of a garment is incredibly important to its integrity, and that sounds a bit silly, but it's really true. If you have a cheap button, the whole thing looks cheap. However good the material is, the whole thing looks cheap. So we use mother of pearl. The beauty of mother of pearl is that it doesn't, say for instance, when you're ironing, if it's plastic, it melts, okay, and it gets ruined, and it goes off colour if it's plastic. If it's mother of pearl, it doesn't change. It still looks fantastic, and it's just got a glint in it that is, just luxurious, really. And I could use plastic buttons, and I would save myself some money. But to me, I think that would be a disaster.
But I think that's the brilliant thing here, to use the term that you've used a lot in this interview. It's feel. You guys, what's amazing about what you're doing is that you feel your way, because technically what you're doing, because you've got all that history, all that knowledge, but you very much day to day are feeling what you're doing. And like those buttons are a perfect metaphor for that.
Yeah.
Because, when I put on a Harvie Hudson shirt, I feel those buttons, and it's different, and that leads on
and you
to...
put it on, you put one on every day.
Yeah.
So you are enjoying that every day. And it's a subtle thing, isn't it? I mean, how subtle. But...
Yeah. That informs the next question quite well. And, do you see a difference in people and their self-confidence when they've been outfitted properly in a proper suit?
100%.
Yeah. Posture as well?
100%.
People standing straighter?
Yeah. It does it to me too. Every day I probably come in casual clothes because you're on a train and you get beaten up, with sort of standing next to people and on the tube or whatever. But when I come in, I walk, I put my suit on, and I do feel, ready for the game. And it actually makes me stand better. And if it's a good shoulder, it makes you look better, even if you're not standing better. So yeah, it's all important,
Here we are in Jermyn Street.
Get your game face on.
Yeah, exactly. It is. For me, it's a modern suit of armour. You put it on, and that's my number one dress, and I feel ready for anything.
Yeah. And you're not embarrassed to walk in anywhere.
No, absolutely not.
You know that you walk in, you're probably the best dressed.
Yeah.
you know, you're not showing off, but you've got the confidence to think, okay, this is dealt with. Now we'll deal with the business or the conversation.
Yeah. Well, the one person you can never lie to is yourself. And I think it sort
That's
of
it.
informs that, doesn't it? Gives
That's
that
it.
inner self-confidence. So there's a question I want to know the answer to. You know, here we are in the amazing Jermyn Street. We're in London, England. Our seasons are very variable.
All right.
So how does one go about, you know, adapting for that in regards to their dress?
Yeah. Well, imagine selling as well. Yeah. You know, it's you know, with the way the seasons are, it's easy actually, because as long as you're providing the right layers, then it's easy. So you would, you know, in the summer, you would obviously provide layers, for instance, you know, lightweight wools, cashmere and cotton, something like that, that you would be able to wear if you were outside a pub or in a cool restaurant, even with air conditioning. You might want to wear a thin layer over your shirt, but you might not want to wear a jacket because it's too formal. So that's a layer. And when it comes to winter, again, it's easy because you provide you know, nice silk scarves, cashmere scarves, even cravats. You know, have had a revival, and you sort of think, well, cravats, you know, isn't that completely archaic? Well, I sell lots of cravats, and the reason I do that is I think it keeps people quite warm. You know, they're not going to wear a tie, and they'll be quite warm. They might be going, you know, shooting. They might be in the country. They might be at a party, but you know, these little layers are what makes the difference. Lovely socks, you know, warmer socks or cooler socks, cotton or wool or cashmere. You know, it's about creating nice things to wear that are appropriate for that time.
Make you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and confident.
So if we were to say to someone, look, you know, as someone with your knowledge, this is the starter pack, this is the foundation to a wardrobe, what would it be?
You'd probably well, it would of course be the blue suit. It would of course be a few white shirts, a few different white shirts. It would be let's see what else you'd have to have. A blazer, you know. It sounds incredibly old school, but if you think about a blazer, where you go when you go traveling, you can go, you know, you could go to New York traveling. You might need only to carry one jacket, and that'll be a blazer. You could wear that blazer with chinos. You wear it with jeans. You can wear it with flannels. You know, dress it up, dress it down. It's a really good start. As to a wardrobe here, I always have a tweed jacket, something like the one you're wearing. Maybe a Donegal, it's a little lighter. You could have a Harris, but Harris's are heavy. They are for outside. And on top of that, probably a few, I mean, I love bold checks. You know, I love things like this. I love pink shirts. You know, for me, a pink shirt is, I think it shows a bit of confidence, but I think more than that, it makes you look healthy.
Yeah.
It reflects on you, and white shirt can be draining. Blue shirts, you need a blue shirt. You need about 3 blue shirts. If you're feeling peaky, a pink shirt is the one.
Brings out the blush.
It brings out the blush. It just makes you look much more healthy. If it's been a tough night with a client the night before, wear a pink shirt.
So now we're going to get into some of the sort of really Sonder-esque questions that we like to ask. So we're going into sort of inner world values side now. And what I want to ask first is, you know, are there characteristics and traits that you recognize in yourself that are either innate or you've developed intentionally over time that help you be the person you are?
Certainly I can tell you about the innate ones, which are really that I really enjoy people. So, you know, I enjoy talking to people. So that's a big help. But I also enjoy listening to what they're trying to tell me. And, you know, and that's really useful for me because, you know, when you're buying, you want to provide something that obviously has your DNA in it, but you want to provide something that people want and value. So that, I think that was passed on to me. I think that probably comes from my father, because I did work with him for about 20 years. So, and obviously he was my dad, but I worked with him for about 20 years, and I think some of that comes from him. So it's about hospitality as well as, so that's what comes, I think, more innate. I learnt probably more about the actual business, probably more since we changed the business, because you make it yours when you change something. And so I think that was about 10 years ago. So when we rebranded, etc., we really had to take some risks. We really had to put ourselves out there and obviously keep what was valued and set ourselves up for the next 75 years, So we wanted to set ourselves up. And that is something that I learned. Yes, it was in the background. Yes, my forefathers showed me an awful lot. But when it came down to change, that's when I had to learn, And so that's something I brought on, probably not myself, because we're all influenced by lots of people, but that's something that I had to go through.
And was there any moments in your career, like a big flash moment or an occurrence that changed your mentality or shifted the way you think at all?
Well, obviously, and I think for a lot of businesses, this was the same thing. It was the advent of the internet was and e-com was a big change. And I think it was I almost felt like that was what I was waiting for. To me, in 1999, we had our first website, and I think we were sort of on point, really. It wasn't a fully functioning e-com site, but it was, a presence, and it did work. And that was fairly seismic because it allowed us to express ourselves in a financially viable way to the whole world. And so that was a light bulb moment. That was an explosive moment, and really incredibly exciting and important for us.
So one of the things we discussed today, which I absolutely love, and I think it's a great metaphor of what H&H is today, is your two watches. You have the one with the story, and you just care, and that's one of the things I really love about this shop and yourself, is you just care. And then you have your digital wristband that is right on the digital edge, and it's all about development. And so, personal growth, really important thing, really important topic for us, is how do you actively pursue that? Because you seem to be someone that does that.
I do. I mean, I'm on a physical level. I love to run, and that's been one of my favourite things for probably 10 years. And I cycle a little bit, but it's really about the running. So, and I'm very keen on being here for a little bit longer.
Good.
I just want to enjoy it a bit longer. So I'm in my 60s, so I love the idea of just being healthy, I don't want to live forever, but I want to feel good whilst I'm here.
Quality of life.
So I definitely look after myself on the health front. I'm quite, I've got a couple of things that I really enjoy. I like to meditate. I think it's very good for your brain. And so I do that. I also love, on the other end of the scale, I love portrait photography.
Oh wow!
Which is again an extension of liking people. It's going up to people and really engaging and photographing. And I love motorcycles.
Oh, cool!
I love motorcycles. Cool. So for me, there's these sort of two sides of
the coin.
My coin.
So, this makes you sound very old, which you're not, and you're in great fettle. But success, how do you define it? And has that changed over your life?
Success is, first of all, on a business level, I was thinking about this. I mean, my success for me is sort of building a group of people that you're embedded with for most of your day, that you enjoy being with, but are also all contributing to this vehicle and going forward with the business. So working with this team is fantastic, and that's that's not always easy, but boy, when you get it right, it's fantastic. So that is a mark of, to me, is being surrounded by some great people. There's a lot of years in this room. We were standing in the room. There was 4 of us, and there was 158 years of selling in Harvie and Hudson in 4 people. So we were pretty amazed by that. Success on other levels is being having a lovely family, having a lovely dog to walk in the country, having great friends, that connecting. I get connection in business, but I could get connection at home with great friends. A little bit of sport, again, is probably one of the things that keeps, the enthusiasm.
Well, we love that because, we really are the podcast about people, and we've met your lovely team today, and, we've had such a fun time. So when times are tough, though, when things are difficult, is there a habit, a go-to person or a place? Is there something that you use as a mechanism? Or
I think, it's usually about I go running.
Yeah.
If I'm stressed, I go running. It's probably why I started in the first, but it's really meditative. I love to, relax with friends, the classic thing, really. I do, if I'm, regularly, I will get out on my motorbike, because to me, that is one of the greatest meditations.
Freedom.
Well, it's freedom. You can't think about anything else. If you think about anything else, you're toast.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's my escape.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, this is our signature Sonder question, but in the theory of Sonder, there's all the archetypes: leaders, villains, heroes. What do you see yourself as in your life?
A creator, really. Sounds very grand, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, we're here in it's something that you've created, all these beautiful suits in this physical space.
It's not just me, by the way. For me, it's I kind of know where I'm happy with the company, but I also feel driven to kind of make it better. And I have a vision. Sometimes I'll be working with the social media or ecom people, and they'll present something, and I'll think, wow, that's great. You got in my head. You got that. And other times I think that's completely not what I was thinking. And it's, the problem is me telling them, not, So it's about having the vision, and having that team around me allows that to happen.
Yeah. And to put that in perspective, since you and I have been talking about this podcast, you've always talked about the team and how powerful the team is and how wonderful. And having met them today, I can see that. And you all work so well together because you obviously got great relationships.
Yeah.
So we now have a question for you from the charming Hassan Kuba, who is our last interviewee, victim.
Yeah.
And he wanted to ask you, what's the most controversial thing that you believe in, that you think other people might find controversial?
I don't know how controversial it is, but it's. I wonder whether people think that you can't be a good guy in business and be successful, and be morally sound and be successful, and I think you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I love how uncontroversially controversial that is.
It's not very controversial, but so many people think, you've got to be a hard guy to get through. Well, I don't think you've got to have your rules, you've got to have your morals, but people will know if you're not playing things the right way.
Yeah, not without a straight bat. And I like that. So it's such a great adage for life, because actually there are a lot of complicated things in life, but there are also a lot of simple things.
Yeah.
So to that note, would you like to ask a question of our next interviewee?
Yes. Yeah. Is there something that people would be surprised to find out about you? and you would be embarrassed to show?
Oh, I love that question. I can't wait to ask that. And it will be another lovely, interesting person like yourself. So looking forward to sending you
I'm
the
looking
response.
forward to hearing the answer to that.
Marvellous. Well, thank you so much, Richard. It's been such a wonderful morning and day.
Pleasure.
Stepping us into not only Jermyn Street, your family heritage, but this unique world of tailoring and one of the most famous tailoring shops in the world. Amazing. Thank you so much.
No, it's been a great pleasure.
It's been really good
Really
fun.
enjoyed it.
So if you'd like to find Harvie and Hudson and you'd like to speak to Richard, they have their physical shop. They have a big online presence. There's loads of information about it in our episode notes. And also we'll be doing some other snippets and going into some of the materials later today. So please check out all the channels. Now, at the end of this, I've got to ask you, please like and support, because that allows us to continue having conversations with people like Richard. So thank you very much, and I look forward to you tuning in for the next episode.